Welcome to What's the Point? A question we should all be asking ourselves, and the podcast by brand architect Bill Ellis.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to What's the Point? I'm your host, Bill Ellis, and this is the podcast where we explore how people discover and live their purpose. Today, I actually have two guests, one of whom I first featured years ago when I was still blogging. My Friday's Fearless brand featured this gentleman, and he caught my attention, and I'm just thrilled to finally have a chance to meet him somewhat in person. His name is Shawn Askinosie, and his daughter is also with us, Lawren Askinosie. Hello, Shawn. Hello, Lawren.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for being here. Just a minute or two, or a second or two, to let people know more about you both. Shawn and Lawren are the father and daughter team behind Askinosie Chocolate. It's a small batch, award-winning bean-to-bar chocolate company in Springfield, Missouri. It sources 100% of its cocoa beans directly from farmers in Ecuador, the Amazon, the Philippines, and Tanzania. Shawn left a successful career as a criminal defense attorney back in 2006, 2007 to begin this work, and he's never looked back. Forbes named Askinosie Chocolate one of the best small companies in America, and the Oprah magazine recognized Shawn as one of 15 guys who are saving the world. That's pretty impressive. We'll talk about that. He's been inducted recently into both the Specialty Food Association Hall of Fame and the Missouri Public Affairs Hall of Fame. And not to be outdone, Lawren is equally impressive. Shawn comes to us today from Springfield, Missouri. Lawren comes to us from Austin, Texas, what they call the Austin Annex. She grew up around and with craft chocolate. She began college early, joined the business full-time at 20. She learned every part of the work from production to branding. Today, she serves as the chief marketing officer, leading the company's storytelling and farmer partnerships. And she has a particular passion for empowering female cocoa farmers and girls in origin communities. She splits her time between Austin and Springfield, connecting the global and local dimensions of the work. And that is a mouthful, you two. You two are certainly very impressive. They are also co-authors of the #1 best-selling book, Meaningful Work. Shawn's also the co-founder of the Lost and Found Grief Center, where he continues to serve. And through Chocolate University and the Askinosie Foundation, they help students understand that business can be a force for good in the world. Quite a mouthpiece and quite a tribute to both of you. It's really impressive. Let's start kind of basic. How does it feel to be here together, recording this together, subjecting yourself to whatever questions might come your way?
I'll let Lawren go.
I love doing this, actually. I love getting to speak about who we are and what we do with my dad. I think it's more fun than doing it on my own, really. And now that I'm a parent myself, I think I have a deeper appreciation for how cool it is, and also the work that goes into us making it work as a father-daughter team. So I don't take any of it for granted.
Great.
Dad?
No, I would agree. I would echo those sentiments, and I think it's better together for sure. And we don't get the opportunity to do this very often together, so we're grateful for that. Yeah, I mean, I would rather do this with Lawren than anybody else I can think of, and trust her implicitly, and I'm thankful that she's taken such a interest when she was a little girl to the point of taking ownership of the company, partial ownership of the company now. So that's really cool.
And that's part of what makes this story so intriguing to me, and I'm sure our listeners are going to find it the same way. And Shawn, it was quite a shift for you to change careers from criminal defense attorney to chocolatier, if you will. Share with us what your thinking was, what your purpose was, what kind of drove that shift.
Well, your question presumes that I was thinking, and I'm not sure. Some might really question whether that process happened at all. And I was, I did criminal law for a long time, almost 20 years, and I specialized in serious felonies in Missouri and federal court in other states. And it's just a stressful kind of work, and you can only do it for so long, whether you're a defense lawyer or a prosecutor or a police officer. There's a lot lot of stress there. And so I was just ready for something else to do. Started chocolate really before people were doing it. We were one of the first 3 companies in the United States to do small batch bean to bar chocolate making. And there were a few that started with us about the same time, but now there's 300, maybe more. Lauren knows more than I do about that. But there's a lot of people in this business now. But when I started, it was just, a way to get out of what I was doing, to get out of the courtroom. I still keep my license active because you never know when I might need it. And so,
especially in this day and age.
Yes, exactly. And so, but I'm grateful for that experience of having that career and it preparing me for the one that I'm in now.
I appreciate what you're saying as far as the pressure, and you can only do something like that for so long. Kudos to you for recognizing that and for taking the action to make a move. A lot of people get stuck where they are thinking that there's no other alternative. So that statement just by itself, Shawn, is a powerful message to my listeners. So I appreciate you sharing that. I am curious whether you were thinking or not, were you having a nice chocolate bar one day and said, you know what, I could make this better? Or it just strikes me as very unique and interesting and intriguing to go from law to chocolate.
In the early days when I would get this question, I would have some fancy answer. But now I don't mind admitting, I really don't know how I ended up in chocolate. I didn't have any hobbies back in those days. I started grilling and cooking outdoors and then baking and then making chocolate desserts. And then from chocolate desserts, I was like, oh, well, I wonder where this comes from.
Okay.
And then 20 years ago this month, I went to the Amazon to kind of check that out, see how farmers grow it. That's how it happened.
Again, just an absolute perfect answer to anyone that's listening that's wondering, how do I get to the next level? And it's kind of like follow the path that's in front of you. Lawren, so you were like still in high school when this whole sudden shift in what Dad's doing came about. How did that impact you, and did that help shape your sense of purpose in life?
Yes, it did. I was always proud of my dad's career. And when he decided that he was interested in doing something else, I think my mom and I weren't sure what to think. I remember him saying, I think I might need to do something different. I think I want to do this chocolate thing. And, at the time, I was, I think, more amused by it than anything. Looking back now, I can see how lucky I was to get that example of, a parent who was able to recognize and say, like you just pointed out, Bill, hey, I'm not sure if this is for me. I'm going to try something different because I think there's so much value in that. But I loved it. I loved talking with my dad about the logo and the name and what the website was going to look like and the packaging. I was kind of a funny high schooler in that I was really into that at that time, very into design.
Should we stop for just a minute and tell the story about the name? So we're driving back from Santa Fe. Our family used to go there a lot on vacation. Now we go to Austin because we live there. We live there part-time. We split our time in Austin, much like you split your time in Dubai. And because of Lauren has a 5-year-old Goldie and 1.5-year-old Cardinal. So we have a house there and we're there a lot. So we're driving back from Santa Fe. Lauren's 13 years old, and I'm trying to think of a name for the company. This is before, I'm still practicing law. And about hour 7, so we're going through Amarillo about this time. She's in the back seat, hadn't said anything. And she said, hey, Dad, I've got an idea for the name for the company. I was like, oh, what? What is it? What is it? She said, how about we call it Shut the Hell Up? And because I do tend to kind of obsess about these things, so I'm sure we were talking about it for 6 hours. But on that trip, interestingly enough, Lauren was and still is very much an aficionado of fashion and food and brands and luxury brands. And she was 11 years old and had, a computer in my office at our house and had like 1,000 fashion websites bookmarked So she was very much into, like you, Bill, into brand, into just how the brand behaves online and what they look like back then in print and stuff like that. But so she was really the inspiration behind the way the brand looked, even from the beginning. I mean, from the very, very first website and packaging, she was involved in that, even though she didn't go to work for us until she graduated when she was 20, but she was involved in it from when she was 15 years old.
So when did you make the choice to just go with the family name?
I don't know when that was, but let me just take a little time out here for your listeners and say, don't do that.
Do it.
That is not, I regret doing that. It's a long story, but so just call it anything but your last name. There's a lot of contractual stuff there that, luckily, there's only one other Askinosie that's my brother, and he's never given me trouble about it. I mean, he buys the chocolate a lot and is very proud of it, but anyway. So yeah, I don't remember, Lauren, when we decided to do that, but
I don't either.
I think it was because probably Lauren was so tired of me. This is back before can you imagine if we'd had ChatGPT then?
Oh,
I would have had 5,000 names of companies. I mean, I literally had pages and pages of names, and probably in fact, I remember one time her mom, my wife, said, it was on a Friday, and she said, you have until Monday to decide on a logo. And if you don't decide on a logo by Monday, then I'm going to do it for you. So this is the way it happens.
He and I both can tend to perseverate on things. So we can get along in that way and also call each other out on that.
Well, that brings up a great segue. So thank you for that. When you both co-authored the book, Meaningful Work, what did you learn about each other that maybe surprised you?
For me, what really surprised me is I knew it took us 3 years to write the book. And I knew before we started that Lauren was a gifted writer. I knew that. I knew that she was a really gifted writer, and not just a gifted writer, but a gifted grammarian. So she really understands grammar in a way that probably nobody else does in a 500-mile radius. I mean, she teaches it. She's really good at it. But what I didn't fully appreciate was that she could write in my voice. I didn't really, and that's a special talent, I think. It's one thing to be a great writer for yourself, but it's another to be able to put it in someone else's voice. And I could tell in writing the book that she could do that, and that was pretty cool to see that as a dad.
That probably amazing as a dad, but also just good as a partner. It's such a rare find, as you said. So, Lauren, how did you come to be able to write in your dad's voice?
A lot of the brand at the beginning was his voice. So, as a teenager, I was managing our social media accounts back when, Facebook had just started and was for college students. But so I kind of was able to sort of develop that muscle in other, areas, because it really was kind of, Shawn Askinosie, and now the brand's evolved into, kind of both of our voices and really outside of us. But I got some practice that way. And I also think I know my dad very well. It's just kind of easy for me to sort of stick myself inside of his, brain. People will often say, like, oh, we, know what Lauren can just tell us what Shawn would say about that. But it was a really challenging experience writing the book. One of the most challenging things I've ever done, but also so special. So many of these stories I was familiar with because my dad and I talk all the time and we're very close. And I grew up hearing stories about him and his childhood, but being able to write about that with him was a different experience.
That got to be just so very special. Speaking of meaningful work, Shawn, you and Lauren and the company have really expanded, I'll call it, the role and the purpose of Askinosie Chocolate into many other significant undertakings. One of which is, I mentioned in the intro, that you're the co-founder of the Lost and Found Grief Center. If you're comfortable, can you tell us a little bit about that, what it does and how it came to be?
Sure. And just so for clarity's sake, Lost and Found Grief Center really doesn't have anything to do with Askinosie Chocolate. They're completely separate. It has a lot to do with me, to the extent that I have something to do with Askinosie Chocolate. But 25 years ago, so right before, maybe 5 years before the founding of the chocolate company, I co-founded with Dr. Karen Scott a grief center, a regional grief center in Southwest Missouri called Lost and Found, to help children and families who've experienced the death of a parent or sibling, to help them heal as best possible in that moment. And so that I was on the board and have been on the board for 25 years. I'm on inactive status right now. I was a teen group facilitator for 15 years, so I worked with teenagers twice a month. And it came about because I myself experienced a death when my dad died when I was 14. So I kind of knew what it was like and thought, along with my co-founder, that it would be great if we could offer that kind of service in not just the community, but in the region. Mm-hmm. We've had 20,000 people come through, more than 20,000 people come through for free to work in support group settings. And now we have many, many groups, and it's not just for children. It's for older adults whose spouse dies, and for parents whose children die. And it's, so it's, anyway, it's something I'm really proud of and that I've worked on for a long time. And now it's nice to be able to see that the organization is really flourishing without my micromanagement. And so it's really gratifying to see the organization in its 25th year do that.
25 years of helping people through grief, 20,000 plus people that have gone through your program, the ripple effect of that, the reach of that 20,000 to how many others, it's exponential. So again, I just, a tip of the hat isn't enough, but yeah, I'm sorry if it came across that I was implying that was part of Askinosie Chocolate, but it's definitely part of Shawn Askinosie. And part of the reason I raised that topic is because I find it very necessary, very enlightening, and something that we all experience grief. But I also brought that up because, Shawn, that's another one of the many factors that impressed me about your journey through life. You have very clearly made the decision that it's not all about making money. It's not all about having the biggest company. It's about trying to help the world improve as best you can with what you have. So, Lawren, when you watch that, when you see that part of your dad's journey, how has that influenced you? How has that influenced your own journey?
It's funny now. I joke with my husband, if you think about leaving your career and industry that you're in, now that we have two small kids and the height of and you're going to go do something, wacky, start a chocolate factory. But in all seriousness, it's, it really has left such a lasting impression on me that I have a parent who is able to, like I said, recognize those things, and working alongside my dad, dealing with the many challenges that come with operating a small business, and watching him navigate these things with, vulnerability and humility and just the kind of leader that he is. I mean, it's absolutely impacted who I am as a person and how I move about the world in a way that is hopefully one of being of encouragement to other people. When I think about his work with Lost and Found at the time as a 10-year-old, I didn't really understand. Now I feel so lucky to have grown up where I was able to have conversations about grief and death and dying. And though that sounds, morbid, I think it's made me a better human and a more empathetic human, and one that has a deeper understanding of the human experience and the kinds of sorrows that people can experience, which is something that we write about in our book. We all have, sorrows. And what I've learned from my dad is that we can take those things, and the best thing we can do is put that to work and how we're of service to people.
Yeah.
And I've been able to do that in my own life, and I hope that I'm setting that same example for my kids as well.
And, Lauren, I think actually that there are two sides to this, or there's kind of a double edge to grief and sorrow and all of these things that happen in all of our families. And I do think that grief particularly is epigenetic, and in the sense that my grandmother and grandfather from Europe were survivors and refugees from Nazi Germany. And my grandmother's family, but her and her uncle died in the Holocaust. She lived, she was here in America. And so there's a lot of grief and trauma around that. And so my dad is raised in that environment, and then he raises me, and then he dies young. And so even though Lauren hasn't met them, she actually met my grandmother when she was 4 months old, but she never met my dad. And so, but she's met them in the sense that she's met me. And so even though thankfully she didn't experience grief as a teenager the way I did, she has her own grief. So that's what I'm saying. There's kind of a shadow side of the good things that we do with these tragedies in our life. And I've heard you on podcast, Bill, speak of this, that these kind of challenges and suffering that we go through have the opportunity to make us a better people if we let it. And so what Lauren has done, and it's not, and Lauren as a new mom now, I think will affirm what I'm going to say, which is there's an element of Lauren is, my daughter. So she's got my DNA. And so there's that part of her that is probably going to be compassionate no matter what. Then there's this part of seeing the stuff go on in our household, like me going to meetings and her being at meetings that where Lost and Found is discussed. So she sees that environmentally, and that impacts her. And then she just has her own life experiences, and all of those together have, really, Lauren is one of the most compassionate, sensitive people that I've ever met, and has, even though she's a mom, has taken time out of her busy schedule to work with young women in Central Texas who have nobody, and to take her time to meet with them, to mentor them, to help raise money for organizations that support them, to the point that her daughter, Goldie, when she was 3 or 4, would ask her mom about this organization and knew what her mom was doing when she was going to these meetings, and then would act it out in her own play in her bedroom. Like, hey, I'm going to a girls empowerment meeting, and all about this. And I'm preaching to the choir. You've written, I guess, one book. I guess your first book was about women. And so you wanted to do that for your grandchildren. And so you get it. And this is what I'm saying. I'm saying it's genetic, it's environmental, it's her own life experiences. But what they've accumulated to is someone who cares deeply about what's going on in her community and the world, literally the world, and especially right now, and is very, very sensitive to it and wants to take action. That is the daughter that I have. And I'm not saying it's all me, and I'm not saying it's all my grandparents. I'm saying it's her, it's Lauren, but she doesn't just sit around and read the news and fret about it. She wants to do something about it.
Yeah.
And that's a real gratifying feeling as a parent. That's what we all hope for.
Exactly. And that collection, I'll call it, of values that have gone through your family and passed down and passed around, while not always positive and sometimes no doubt had some negative impact, that's what I call legacy. And what I hear, Shawn, is that your pride in Lauren for being the person she is, whether you want to accept that or not, that's part of your legacy, is passing that on to her. So that gets me back to the topic of values and being true to values, and how you bring values into and maintain those values in your business. That can easily go awry. And in particular, right now, we talked about this being one of your busiest times of the year. So how is it difficult to stay in touch with that, what I'll call heart value, when you're in a dollars and cents crunch for your business?
It's going to sound trite, potentially, but bear with me. No, really. And I think it's because it's so ingrained into everything we do. I mean, the values that my dad and I hold are also embodied by our team. And so because we have such an amazing team of people, from our farmer partners to, our actual employees, it's just woven in to the culture, to our customer service, whether we're dealing with a Whole Foods in San Francisco or a mom and pop shop in Arkansas or someone who's ordering one bar on the website. We have the same priorities for our interactions with those people. And I think because we do this work of visioning, which kind of goes beyond a traditional mission statement, but, it's this active work of who do we want our company, to be? And we're able to stay really tethered to that because it's this kind of active pursuit of those values. And we're able to decide what opportunities we're taking or not taking, and what kind of decisions we're making, as a company, based on those values and based on that vision of, where we see ourselves, and the kind of people we want to be in our community and the kind of business owners we want to be, and how we want to treat our farmer partners and our employees and customers. So,
Well, that is exactly the example of a company driven by its core values of any company that I've come across. And I've come across many that do that. But to kind of restate what you just said, it's not hard to hang on to your values during the tough times because the values are what got you to the tough times. And your values are what you live and breathe. It's not just in your business, it's in your life. So for you guys, that's kind of just natural. And then to hire and maintain a collective workforce that shares that is the key. So you have that value, that sense of value throughout the company. And it's very easy then to make business decisions with values in mind. So again, just very impressive that's going on. Quick question for each of you. Working together, what I've heard so far is you have a lot of similarities. Are there some areas where Shawn has strengths that help you, Lawren, and some areas, Lawren, where you have strengths that help Shawn, your dad? And are there just areas where you kind of butt heads?
yes.
Yes, to all of them.
Yeah. Yes to all of that. Yes. I'll say something and then I'll let my dad speak to this. I mean, we are very similar. We also have a lot of differences, not so much philosophical differences, but the way in which we want to approach things, or the speed in which we want to take things, or maybe a pivot or a direction in which things might, we want to go for the company. But we recognized a long time ago that as, a father-daughter team, that our relationship was really kind of establishing a part of the culture of the company, whether we liked it or not.
No.
And the way in which we related to each other was critically important. So we put in work around that. And I share that because I think it's something that is worth talking about, that we at times got outside help for us to be able to work through certain topics or challenges and how we were communicating with each other. It has not been all sunshine and rainbows and easy, but it's all been worth it. And I think because we both value each other so much and because we prioritized our relationship, we've been able to work together pretty well. Even during some challenging times. I don't know what you have to add to that, Dad.
I think that it's a great question and one that we could do an entire show about.
Yep.
But it's important to remember that it isn't static. So, for instance, when Lauren and I were working together and I was in my, mid 40s, just coming off of a career as a successful trial lawyer, and Lauren is, 19, well, the relationship, the dynamic is going to be different than as she progresses as an executive herself and developing her own way and style and leadership style and that sort of thing. So to the point that the answer to the question is a moving target. And so, I would say, yes, it's one of those things that's super gratifying. And Lauren and I have been very close. I mean, literally since she was born. And so I have no doubt that in my final moments of life, whether it's, in a nursing home bed or wherever it may be, that I'll be thinking of these times that we had together. And I suspect that I won't remember the arguments and, times that we were mean to each other because we are a lot alike. I will say this though, we spend a lot of time together because, as I said, we're in Austin every, 4 to 6 weeks and hang out there. But the greatest compliment that Lauren could ever give me is that she would trust me with her kids. So that is a real joy for me. And it's something that I don't take lightly because she's a great parent. And to trust me with her kids overnight, is a big deal. And it's been going on for 5 years, and I'm deeply grateful for it. The other thing I would say, though, is just from a practical standpoint, when I was trying cases, and I specialized in the defense of murder cases, really, that's kind of where I built my reputation. I can only really think of one prosecutor that I was afraid of. I mean, like literally in fear of. I can tell you that if Lauren was a prosecutor, I would absolutely fear her because she would be able to destroy me even more than this particular prosecutor, whose nickname, by the way, was Dr. Death. He never lost a death penalty trial in Missouri. He was a special assistant attorney general, and that's all he did was travel around and do death penalty. And I was afraid of the guy. But if Lauren, she has the capacity, should she decide, she could go to law school and probably finish in 3 months, and she could come out and try a case against me and completely, just put me in a Vitamix because she's that good. She's very, very, very talented, quick on her feet. And I would probably, if I was against her in the courtroom, I would just probably just walk back right out the door.
We make it, he met his match.
No, I've met the victor.
Well, I'm glad we can apparently leave that as just an analogy and a hypothetical. And moving on. I'm curious how much of this was driven by, like we mentioned, legacy, and how much it was driven by watching your dad, Lawren, do the outreach that he does. Mm-hmm. But you have been exceptionally active. Your dad's already referenced the work you do in Texas for women, but you have a keen interest in your farmer partners in general, but in particular the females within that field and helping them survive. Share with us a little bit about how you are involved, what kinds of things help women, what kind of things help you by learning from them.
So, I think probably when I was a teenager, I started really becoming a lot more aware of just gender-based norms and kind of how those played out. And I became very passionate about the topic in general and became a self-identified feminist at that time and was very interested in sharing that with my dad, especially as he was, building the business and getting him to read books. And so my passion has long been around just empowering women, that lifting up women and any and all societies lifts the entire tide for everyone. So issues that we traditionally think of as being, women's issues, whether it's menstruation or childbearing and rearing, all of those things are everyone's issues. And I started understanding that there were a lot of women in cocoa who were doing a lot of the work and not necessarily getting the recognition. My dad and I really decided together that we wanted to prioritize finding female farmer groups. And, I'm proud that we were the first, maybe the only still, craft chocolate maker in the U.S. that worked directly with female farmer groups. The one we've been working with in Tanzania, it's been a 15-plus year relationship. And my times that I've been able to spend in the village of Mababu with Mama and Pokey, with the co-op that she is the leader of, are some of my favorite moments of my life. What I've learned from the women in that community and the young women in the schools that we work with as part of our Chocolate University program, they have absolutely shaped what I believe about perseverance and gratitude. And I even, dedicated the book to a young woman that I met over 10 years ago in Mababu, who was part of our Empowered Girls program. I've learned so much from her and the other young women there. Became very passionate about understanding what they needed to help them be successful, and discovered things that should have been obvious and weren't to me. We knew that they were hungry. So, we worked to help provide school lunches, did tutoring for them to help them be successful in school. And it wasn't until a few years in that it became clear that they weren't able to attend school because they didn't have access to feminine hygiene products. So then that became a part of our Chocolate University program. And, fundraising for the young women to have, monthly access to period products, which dovetailed, unfortunately, with my work here in Central Texas with Girls Empowerment Network, and understanding that actually access to period products is a significant issue in the U.S. as well, that girls face. And so the more of this work that I've done around the world, the smaller things become, actually. There's so many of the same gender-based violence, just oppression of women in general, that it's a similar experience of a girl in a high school in Central Texas as it is to a girl in a, rural village in Tanzania. Yeah. And what I want to do is listen and learn from them and see, how I might be of some small help. And that's, really what I see as my vocation in this life.
You've mentioned, Lauren, two things that I want to build on. The first is through your travel, through your outreach, through learning and saying, I don't know it all, what can I learn? Looking for the similarities. You've grown so much and you've learned so much. And we start to realize when we're open to doing that the differences that get hyped in all sorts of areas in our lives don't have to be the focal point. And that, there are going to be differences, but the similarities are even stronger. You also mentioned something that it's almost like you're seeing my notes over here. Expand and Shawn, jump in when you'd like. Chocolate University, when you first hear Chocolate University and you're not a part of your company, you might think, chocolate running fountains and Willy Wonka and, just all this, happy chocolate joy. But it is so much more than that. It's so the depth and the help and the value that the Chocolate University brings to countless people, children and others. Expand on that for us.
Dad, I'll let you take that.
The program Chocolate University started just really as a project in the company. It wasn't its own entity. And when we started the company, we wanted to engage the young people of the neighborhood who, there was Springfield's largest homeless shelter was a block away at the time. There were 85 kids a night, and they fed into the neighborhood elementary and middle school. And so we started at the local elementary school there, and we were involved in the 4th and 5th grade. They would come to the factory. We went to the classroom. This is, 18, 19 years ago. And we expanded that to a middle school program at Pipkin Middle School. Then in 2009, we decided to have a high school business immersion program for kids in Southwest Missouri. They could apply to be part of this program, very competitive program. Then we started a summer school program, all with 20 employees, I should say. We only have 20 employees. And then about 7 years ago, the farmers in Tanzania asked us to build them a preschool. And we needed to form a separate nonprofit to do that so we could disperse funds in Tanzania. So the Chocolate University Foundation was born with a fully functioning board of directors. Lauren and I are both non-voting members of that board, and raise money for it. We have one part-time employee, and we have one full-time employee that lives in Tanzania that is Tanzanian. And so we have a feeding program and a malnutrition program for kindergartners in the Philippines. We've had 6 school lunch programs there. As Lauren referenced, our Empowered Girls program is vibrant in and around the village in Tanzania. And in 2016, we started a boys program called Enlightened Boys, and we have as many boys in the program as girls now. It's an after-school program. We've had, as of this past summer, 11,000 children graduate from that program since we started. And we provide as Lauren said, the period products for those girls who need them every month. And that's about $25,000 a year to raise that money to do it. And so we raise that money. And the mission of Chocolate University is really twofold. One, as you referenced earlier in the program, to inspire young people that business can be a force for good in the world. And secondly, that there's a world beyond their own. There's a world beyond their own world here in Springfield, Missouri, or at their school. And so we just got back from Tanzania in July. We took 14 high school students there. We've been doing this program for 15 years. And I can say this is the best, most successful trip that we've had. I keep thinking it can't get any better, and they just keep getting better and better. And what it tells me is, very anecdotally, that the future of the world is going to be just fine if we have young people like this who are in leadership positions. We have kids that are going to Ivy League schools. We pay for the whole thing, by the way. Kids that don't have the money, they don't have to worry about it. They pay a $500 registration fee, and we raise almost $6,000 per kid to take them. And they spend time at our factory, and they spend time on the Drury University campus near the factory for about a week in the summer. They go home and pack, meet us at the airport. We take them to Tanzania for a transformative trip. I'm still in touch with kids that are not kids now that went on our first trip in 2010. One of them was on our first trip who's now on our board of directors. He's a tax lawyer in Nashville. Another one works for Uber as an executive in Dallas, got a full ride to Yale. He's on our board. Another one that's on our board of directors, 2 that went and helped lead the trip as adults this time, that went as high school students back in the day. And I dedicate a part of every Friday, I leave free, and I have a Calendly link for students and former students to informally just chat with me and ask questions. So I kind of mentor them, all free of charge. And it's super gratifying. I probably got 5 or 6 freshmen, sophomores in high school, mostly young men. And I love it. I feel good on Friday afternoons when I've had the chance to talk to a few young people and maybe have some small influence in helping them make some decisions.
Well, again, the words that keep popping into my head are value and legacy and ripple effect and far-reaching, planting so many seeds. And they're going to sprout, and we'll never know exactly how or where they sprout, but you're already seeing a few of them with the folks that have come back to you. I've mentioned a couple of times that the holiday season is your busy time. Recently, my wife gifted me a chocolate tasting kit that Askinosie Chocolate tasting kit, and it was fascinating because I've never been very refined in taste. It's like, oh, food, good, eat.
Sounds like me.
And your kit, it had 4 different variety of bars, but it also had a very concise and yet direct and understandable sheet on how to go about tasting. And here are the elements. And by the way, here's the taste realm that you can look at. And it was absolutely fascinating. So if anyone is looking and listening right now that wants to give an incredible holiday gift, go to the Askinosie.com site and get one of those sampling kits. And I guarantee you people are going to thank you and be thrilled with it. Because after I tasted it, I had to go back a second and a third and a fourth time just to kind of reassess my judgments. But when people give Askinosie chocolate as gifts, does that mean something more to you than just a sale?
Yes.
Lauren, you go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it means everything to us. We don't take any of it for granted, whether it's just a one-time gift that somebody, is buying from our site. I see all of the orders come through every day still. And I'm always grateful because this is how we're able to work with Mama and Pokey in Tanzania. These are real dollars that are going back into the hands of our farmer partners, of Peter Cruz in the Philippines. This is how we're able to keep our team going, and keep Chocolate University going and be, helping provide period products to students in Tanzania and lunches to kids in the Philippines. So I'm grateful for that. And I think people also, some people buy our chocolate for that reason, and that's great. But I think a lot of people buy it because they think it tastes good. And then they find out about those things. And that's almost even, better to me. I mean, we've talked a lot about these values and pursuit of these things, and none of it would be possible without making, great tasting chocolate. But to be part of, families' celebrations of weddings and births of children, even deaths of people's parents. I mean, Askinosie Chocolate has been there for a lot of people's families. And, my dad and I and our employees, some of whom have been with us for over 10 years, they have relationships with our customers. But to get to see the pictures and hear the stories of how our chocolate has played a small part in other people's celebrations or times of mourning is deeply meaningful to us. And every sale we're deeply appreciative for. Things are tough out there, and people have a lot of choices where they can spend their money and what kind of chocolate they can buy. And we're just grateful that we get to do what we do.
Well, again, I will assure any and every listener that Askinosie chocolate, regardless of which variety you take, is absolutely amazing chocolate. It's not candy, it's chocolate. And it's exceptional chocolate. And a quick side note to the CMO here, Lauren, the packaging, the design on the individual bars is just really powerful. It's just really, really cool. I almost didn't want to open it, but I knew chocolate was inside, so I did. We're going to run a little bit long here today, maybe, but only a little bit. I just want to lighten things up just a little bit and do kind of a little rapid fire, kind of a real quick just shoot from the hip kind of answers. And you can both answer and you can go however you go. You guys kind of mimic each other, so I'm sure you'll figure this out. But let's start with something real close to home. If you were to describe the other person as one of your chocolate bars, which chocolate bar would the other be?
I would say Lauren would be the 88% super dark, which is intense, but really good.
I'm going to say the 70% Ecuador for my dad's. That's like the original chocolate bar. We've been making it forever, and it just gets better. It just gets better every year, every crop, every time. It's
I'll take that.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Coffee.
Okay.
And tea. I just had tea. I love both.
Yeah, I do love tea. Yeah, we're big coffee people.
Early morning or late night?
Late
Neither. Anymore. I used to say late night. Now I don't like either of them.
Lauren, I didn't hear your answer.
Late night. Right.
Yeah.
But as a parent of two little kids, I don't get a choice anymore. So
Exactly.
mine's chosen for me, which that would be early morning.
Okay. This might be just the perfect segue, but one thing that's bringing you joy right now.
I would say the greatest joy is watching Lawren be a mom. She's a great mom, and I love watching that and hearing about it and seeing it.
Lauren?
I mean, mine would be right now, both of my kids are really thriving and flourishing in the little Montessori school that they're at. And there's just nothing better than seeing your kids flourish, outside of you. And I just had my parent-teacher conference for both of them last week, and I'm so grateful to their guides and the teachers and the way that they care for these kids. And it was so clear to me that my children are really seen by their guides and really delighted in. And I've just spent the last week thinking, like, there's nothing better than that. I mean, you just can't ask for more than that as a parent.
We'll let Shawn go first on this one, but I want to hear from both of you. Shawn has a lot more time to cover. That's why I'm giving him first. What, if you could give your 14-year-old self one message, what would it be?
Yeah, that's a good one. If I could give my 14-year-old, I wouldn't say anything. I would just give him a really big bear hug, to the point that he'd probably want to pull away, and I wouldn't let him pull away, and I would just hold him very close. And that's all I would need. No words.
Powerful. Lawren, you have a shorter distance. Back to 14.
Yep. I would say take heart. 14 there was a lot. I mean, that's, coming of age, young woman. There was a lot of transition for me, and I am such a deeply feeling person. There was a lot of anxiety that I had at that time, and I would tell myself to just take heart. You're on the right path, and things are going to work out.
I've got twin 14-year-old grandchildren, and I might have them listen to at least this part of this just because they're freshmen in high school, and everything you just mentioned is everything I see them going through.
Yeah.
Shawn and Lawren, thank you so much for sharing your time today. More so, thank you for what you put into the world. The value you bring, it's incredible. And you can answer this any way you want, and you can answer it in whichever order feels natural to you. But it's the question every guest on my podcast gets asked to end the show, and that is, from your perspective, what's the point?
I think the point is connecting with other people, finding the commonality, the mutuality, just being in kinship with each other.
I think the point is there is no point. I'm just kidding. That was I was trying
nihilist
to
answer.
Conjure up the Alan Watts version of. No, I think the point is. I think the point of everything and of all existence and of all creation is love, and there is nothing else, and it's the only real thing that there is. It's the only legacy that there is. It's the only real point that there is. I don't think there's anything else that's real.
Well, I can tell you that having had this chance to speak with both of you, and Shawn, again, I especially you, I've been looking forward to this since I first discovered you and wrote a blog about you without ever having met you. But it has been an absolute privilege to hear your story, Shawn, and your story together with your daughter, Lawren, to learn from your reflections, to learn from your lessons, to learn how you care for community and how you are so committed to giving back and giving to the world as opposed to taking. And that's kind of a rare thing. I love how you've both chosen to live your values in real time. So for those listening, have a happy holiday season. We'll go ahead and make that 2 or 3 or 4 months or however long. Make life your holiday. But make your life your holiday with some good samples of Askinosie chocolate, because I guarantee you will thank both Shawn and Lawren. You'll thank Shawn for getting out of the trial lawyer business and getting into the chocolate business, and I know I'm going to have some. Thank you both very much. It's been incredible. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in. And if you like what you've heard, please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. We can promise there is value to be gained in every one. Taking a second to rate, review, and share the show helps make us more discoverable and enables others to find out what's the point. If you'd like to learn more about Bill Ellis and his services, please visit his website, billellis.com. See you next time.